Okay, we're continuing with our parable series. I hope you've been enjoying this. It's a bit of an unusual series to be doing in October. Our focus is usually elsewhere, but when all else fails, go back to the words of Jesus. It's a good place to be. That's where, Mary gives us the example of sits at the feet of Jesus. When the world's upside down, go back to the master. So we have been wrestling with a number of parables, and you guys are pertinent scholars at this point, right? So we, the first week we had an easy one. We had the teacher's notes. It really kind of helped us to set the course for this. We tried one without a safety net. Last week we wrestled a big one that had a little bit of work. So you guys are coming right along. So I feel like we're really ready for a test this week. This is another big one where we're looking at different parables that Matthew records. And this one is special. It is unique only to Matthew. He's the only one that includes this in his gospel story. So, but remember, we've talked about parables. They're tricky. You gotta they don't all work the same. They don't all look alike. They have different kind of dynamics going on there. And today we're going to talk about it in terms of the plot twist. You know the movies that have the, you think you're going this way, and all of a sudden right at the end it goes whoop, right? So to kind of get you primed and ready here, we're going to do a little bit of a test. You guys ready? You didn't know there was going to be a test. Good thing you're drinking coffee. All right. What movie is it? The Sixth Sense. That's right. All right, it's the little boy that can see dead people, and he has a counselor that's helping him through that, deal with it. And the twist at the end is, the counselor is a dead person. Sorry if I ruined that for you. You're 20 years behind, though. Okay. Great movie, right? You just really caught people off guard of like, whoa, wait a minute. And you're like, what are clues? You got to go back and watch through it, and has that whole thing to it. But there's an additional element with some of these movies. You've got the plot twist, but then you also have the kind that will kind of leave you hanging. There's like this ending scene that has all this uncertainty around it, and you're just like, like we like to have our stories wrap up really nice and neat. We know what happens, right? These ones leave us kind of hanging. So this was a gimme. Now the real test comes. You ready? What movie is this? Ooh, what? Inception. One person's going to heaven today. I don't know why you're laughing. That's really the way, no. Right, this is Inception. One of my favorite movies, right? So if you haven't seen it, I'm sorry, you're going to be a little bit lost. I'll give you a super quick synopsis. It's about the idea of being able to implant ideas in other people's minds through putting them into a dream state. And so they do dreams within dreams with dreams type of a thing. And it raises the issue of going, am I in reality or am I sleeping? Am I in a dream? And so one of their techniques is to have a little object called a totem that each character alone can hold and touch. And so it's their test that they do something with it and to find out if they are in a dream or it's reality. And so the final scene is of the main character. He's been trying to work himself back home to get back to his kids. He finally makes it home through all these twists and turns. And then he goes, is this a dream? Is this just what I want to have happen? Or is this reality? And he takes out his totem and he spins it on the table. If it keeps on spinning, it's a dream. If it falls over, it's reality. And so he spins it, and he's looking at it, waiting for it to fall, and then he gets distracted with his kids, and he joins them, and then it pans back, and the thing is just spinning, but it's starting a little bit wobble. And so we're left with this idea. Is this true? Is it a dream, or is it reality? A cliffhanger. Love the movie. Good stuff. Well, today we have that type of parable. It's a big one. We're going to wrestle with it. It's the parable of the workers, and it's got a plot twist with a little bit of some loose ends at the end. You guys ready? You almost scholars. All right, here we go. It's long, so I'm going to put it all up there with us as we read. So for the kingdom of heaven is like a landowner who went out early in the morning to hire workers in his vineyard. He agreed to pay them a denarius, a coin of the time, about a day's wage for the day, and sent them into his vineyard. Then about 9 o'clock in the morning, he went out and saw others standing in the marketplace doing nothing. He told them, "You also go and work in my vineyard, and I will pay you whatever is right." And so they went. He went out again about noon, and then 3 in the afternoon, he did the same thing. And then about 5 in the afternoon, he went out and found still others standing around. He asked them, "Why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing?" That's known as the dad question, right? Teenagers, why have you been standing here all day long doing nothing? "Because no one has hired us," they answered. And he said to them, "You also go and work in my vineyard." Now, when evening came at 6 o'clock, the end of the workday, the owner of the vineyard said to his foreman, "Call all the workers and pay them their wages. Start with the ones that were hired last and then go to the first hired." Now, the workers who were hired about 5 in the afternoon came and each received a denarius, that 1-day payment. So when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more. But each one of them also received a denarius. When they had received it, they began to grumble against the landlord. "These who were hired last worked only 1 hour," they said, "and you have made them equal to us, who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day." But he answered one of them, "I am not being unfair to you, friend. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius? Take your pay and go. I want to give to the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Or are you envious because I am generous?" It's obvious, right? What does that parable mean? Lots of stuff in this, right? Yes, I'm waiting. I'm letting it saturate, marinate into, right? If we were hearing Jesus for the first time, we're just some Israelites standing out in the field. And he tells us this story, and he just lets it sit. So why can't we let it breathe here for a moment? What does this mean? All right, so we have paper in the back of the chairs for everybody. You analyticals, there's a pen. Go ahead and start writing out exactly what this means. Break it down. You creatives, there's a box of crayons. Pick the color that this makes you feel and draw me a picture. No, don't do that. Don't do that. Don't do that. All right. Well, let's do some work with this here. So first, I need to give you some cultural context, right? Because we read this and we're like, it's not like our everyday life, right? You've got day workers. This guy is going out and hiring people. This is how their economy runs. There are people on the payroll like the foreman, but then there's a whole class of people that don't have ongoing jobs. All they do is they go out in the marketplace each day, and whoever comes along, a carpenter, a construction worker, a farmer, whoever goes, "Hey, I have work for you today." And they go and they work that day, and they earn enough money to feed themselves and their family that day. Subsistence living. Now, you might not like that. You might not agree with that, but that's just the way it was at that time. Jesus is just going, hey, everybody knows this is the way things work at that time. And so he tells this story. They would be very familiar with it. And probably people listening to it go, yeah, I'm not making money today because I went to church and listened to you, Jesus, type of a thing. They know this reality. And so this farmer goes out, hires people about 6 in the morning, which would be very typical. They go, yeah, that's right. Maybe even the 9 o'clock, right? You need a few more workers. There are people still hanging out. Now, to come back at noon, 3, and definitely at 5 is very strange in this story. So the longer the story goes, the more that their red flag is going, this is kind of weird. This was normal there for a moment. We understand you make a day's wage there working all day, but now this landowner is going out and hiring people even late in the day. Terrible bad business practice. Why would you even bother to have somebody come and work 1 hour? Don't know why. Jesus doesn't explain. He just goes, this guy keeps on going out and hiring more people. And so we understand that. And then we get to the end where it's time to pay. Hey, gather them all up. That's a normal thing. You don't get a paycheck on Fridays. You get your paycheck every single day. God actually instituted that in the Old Testament laws of do not withhold the wages of a day laborer. Give them what they need so they can go feed their family. So he lines them up. Now, the odd thing is he goes, start with the one that was hired last and go with it in that order. We're, again, not told why. We don't know what the motivation is. It's just, oh, okay, that's a little strange. It's already strange that he's kind of hired people this late. But the story gets really interesting when you get to the end and you see the reactions. And so we might think that this story is really about contentment, right? As these guys are getting paid, the ones that have worked the most kind of look at and they're pretty unhappy, right? We saw this. It goes, when they received it, right here in the middle, when they received it, they began to grumble. Oh, I can't believe this is terrible. Oh, man. Hey, they worked for a day's wage. They got a day's wage. They're going to eat tonight. Their kids are going to eat tonight. It's going to be okay. But they are unhappy. They weren't unhappy at the beginning. They weren't unhappy about working the day, but now they are unhappy, even though they got what they expected, right? And maybe so this lesson, this parable is kind of teaching us, going, you know what? Life might not turn out the way you think, but don't grumble about it, right? It's just kind of bad business to always be looking on the bad side of life. Yeah, it doesn't sound too great. It's in there. Maybe this parable is about telling us don't compare yourself to one another, because this is exactly what those workers do, right? They go, so when those came who were hired first, they expected to receive more, because they saw the first ones, the last ones to get hired, got paid first. They saw that, and they're like, well, if they get a whole day, I've worked the whole day, I expect more. They are only grumbling because they are comparing themselves to someone else. Well, you have this, so I expect this. And, right, that's a bad way to live. It leads to all types of disasters in our life. It makes us very unsatisfied. It makes us angry. It tears us up. And so maybe this parable is going to be, Jesus is going to go, look, when you compare yourself, no matter how you feel about that, it's not going to lead to any good. Just be content with what you have. So that could be in there. But I think most of you would have kind of gone, no, those are in there, but there's really another issue going on. And being almost scholars, I trust that you caught this, right? This is really about fairness, isn't it? Right? The reaction is all at the bottom about fairness. We know about this. They cite it. These who were hired last worked only 1 hour, and you have made them equal to us who have borne the burden of the work and the heat of the day. That's unfair. That's why I'm mad. That's why I'm discontented. That's why I'm grumbling, is because this is unfair. And as we learned last week, right, we never have that mom moment. Okay, kids, let's gather around. I'm going to teach you how to hold a grudge, right? Nobody has to teach that. We know how to do that. There's never that mom moment. Okay, kids, come around. I'm going to teach you how to feel bad about things not being fair, right? As soon as kids know not fair, they're saying, oh, this isn't fair. You're treating Susie different than me. I'm not getting what I want. It's not fair, right? We don't have to teach them that. That comes from our gut. We feel it. We know it. We're like, yeah, there is a way about life, and it better be fair. And as soon as something is not fair in our life, don't you even lie. You know it. Your little antenna, boop. That's not right. It doesn't even have to involve you, and you'll get upset about it. Well, that's not right over there. I can't believe they're letting that happen. That's what's going on here. We have worked the whole day. You've worked 1 hour, and you made them equal to us. We are not equal. We ought to be treated differently. And so this parable is trying to bring this out of going, whatever this landowner is doing, for crying out loud, this is not right. Maybe this parable is about going, hey, don't be like the landlord. You ought to treat people correctly. This is the way that you do business. This is the way that you treat your workers. This is the way that you treat other people. Maybe it is about fairness. And so we get to the response of the landowner. And he knows exactly what's going on, doesn't he? We don't have the word fair here, do we? And yet, he knows exactly what's going on with them. I'm not being unfair to you, friend. I'm not doing anything wrong. There is no injustice here. Didn't you agree to work for a denarius when I hired you at 6 a.m.? Weren't you pleased that you got a job at 6 a.m. and knew you would earn a day's wage so your kids can eat bread tonight? You didn't grumble then. I agreed that for a day's labor. You gave me what you owe me, and I'm giving you what I owe you. Take your pay and go. There's nothing unjust here. Unless you start, comparing and complaining and griping and all that stuff. But that's not what is going on. There is no injustice. And you kind of go, he's right. They did agree to that, right? But he says there is a deeper issue here than fairness. He continues, he says, look, I want to give the one who was hired last the same as I gave you. Don't I have the right to do what I want with my own money? Libertarians, you just missed your moment. Come on, that was your amen moment. The one time Jesus agrees with you. Well, maybe it's more than that. I don't know. Right? He's going, this has nothing to do with fairness. I completed what we agreed on. You gave me labor. I gave you what I told you I'd pay you. I can do what I want with my own stuff. And so then he drills it down and goes, here's what's at stake. Or are you envious because I am generous? So just like last week, right? We talked about forgiveness. And the king drilled it back down, right down, not to forgiveness, but to a foundational value of going, this is about mercy. Let's not just talk about forgiveness. Forgiveness grows out of mercy. That was the central issue. And so is Jesus doing the same thing here in this one, I wonder? Is the voice of the king going, look, this has nothing to do about contentment or comparing or fairness. It has to do with generosity. I am allowed to do what I want, and I want to give to these people in need. And as we back through the story here, you have to appreciate what's going on here. And it explains a little bit of the landowner's actions, right? It was weird that he was hiring people at 3 o'clock and 5 o'clock for certain. Why would you hire somebody for 1 hour? What are you going to get out of them? Because he goes back, he does the normal thing at 6 and 9. But he goes back and goes, why are you still standing here? Why aren't you working? Why aren't you providing for your family? Why aren't you earning the bread to feed your children with? Come work with me. I'll give you a chance at making something of today. The hiring was an act of grace. The generosity began there, not at the payment level. The payment level was an extra level of generosity. But the 6 a.m. people, when they were picked out of the 100 people, were one of the 10, 20 people that got a job, they didn't see it as generous at all, did they? And so we often see this parable as talking about the nature of God's grace. Of going, there are those of us that go, hey, we do what's right and we have borne the work, and others kind of come along. But one of the questions we have to ask and answer here is, who are the characters in this story? Is this a one-for-one thing? Is God the landowner in this story? Jesus never says this. We did that with the king last week, right? We recognized the king kind of represented God for giving this incredible amount. Is God the landlord here? Who are the people? Are they just people in general? Are they Christians? Christians are the ones that are hired. The rest of the people are the ones that are still standing there, maybe. So how does this apply in that? So is this a lot of times people think of this as going, well, this is the end times when God is kind of settling things, and we're like, look, I've been a Christian for 60 years. I haven't drank or smoked or kicked cats. Come on, that's a good one. Right? I haven't had any fun. And then this guy at 67 on his deathbed, after spending all those years in the bar, says a little prayer and he gets into, yeah, that's not fair. Is this teaching us of going, watch your attitude, you don't want to be grumbly in heaven? Maybe it's a message to us today, right? Just as we're kind of living our Christian life of going, well, you know, I've been pulling the sleigh here. Somebody else kind of comes along, well, you got to earn your stripes, you know. You've got to kind of take it easy. I got to be careful not to compare myself to you, because grace is for everyone. It levels the playing field. Like I said, the people that were hired at 6 a.m., that was the grace in their life. That's where the generosity began. And so God treats us all. And this is a powerful message in Christianity of going, no one is above another. But we have all received grace, right? That's a powerful lesson here. Except it's kind of weird. It doesn't completely fit, does it? Like this whole idea of going like, okay, if God's the landowner, like if you've been a good Christian person, God owes you something? He's going to pay your day wage because you've earned it, because you've been a good boy or girl? Others are going to get generosity, but you made your own way spiritually. Well, that doesn't fit with the Christian message at all, does it? That doesn't line up in any way at all. That looks wrong. I'm not sure if this story really is about that anyways. Fortunately, this is not the end of the parable. Jesus gives us one clue at the end of it. He gives us one line of kind of interpretation. It's a little bit cryptic, but he says, and so the last will be first, and the first will be last. Ooh. We are full on in mystery land here. How does this help us understand that parable? How does that parable get to this? Because what he's saying here is, look, what this is about is not about, hey, everybody, we're all here by grace. But it's about a reversal, isn't it? A flip. Something that goes, we thought it was going to go one way, and nope, it goes the other way. What you expect is not what God is doing. Now, we love the unexpected reversal. I saw a perfect example of this years ago. We had a VBS, a sports-themed one. So we had soccer, flag football, and we did some of those, but the kids were kind of wearing out. So we just did a simple game. We had a big circle. They all had the football flags on it, and we called it Sharks and Minnows, right? So you just ran around, and you're pulling off the shark. The shark is the one that pulls off the tag, and whoever's left is the shark, and everybody else got eaten, right? So the kids are just running, and you're confined in this little space. You can't run everywhere. You're in a little fishbowl. And there was one kid way faster than everybody else. Obviously, we're like, yeah, that's the shark, and everybody else is minnows. They're running for their lives. They're trying the best that they can. Another minnow might eat another minnow, but man, that shark is going to eat them all. And then there was this one kid. If you looked him up in the dictionary, it'd say, not fast. There was nothing about him that said fast at all. Not fast. He was the smallest minnow of them all with a broken fin, right? He didn't even run. Like, he had given up. He just walked around because he's like, there's no point to it. I'm the slowest kid out here. And so they're all running around, and the shark is eating up all these kids and getting everybody, and we're going to call him shark bait. He's just walking around because he's like, I can't catch anybody anyway, so I'm not even going to try, and I'm just waiting until I get knocked out. And he was so unassuming. He was so slow, no one bothered to pull his tags. And so he just walked around. All these kids are dropping until he walked right up behind the shark, reached up, and went boom with both of his tags. And the fastest kid was out by the slowest kid. It was like, yes, justice in the world for all us slow people, right? The one you thought was going to lose is the one that wins. We love that moment. We like it. But that's not what the story says, does it? That climactic line. Well, no, I always get this no. Before we get to that, this reversal thing, if we're talking about grace, we're not really reversing things, are we? The context of this parable, the two stories that lead right up to it, both are talking about who's in and who's out. And the disciples completely fail this final exam. Look at this. The kids show up because the parents want Jesus to bless them. They're like, get those kids out of here. This is an adult church. But Jesus rebukes them. And he says, let the little children come to me and do not hinder them because golly gee, they're cute. Let the children come because we like to see them to be around because it just kind of warms my heart. Is that what he said? I'm sorry. What does that text say? Because the kingdom of heaven belongs to such as these. You wanted to keep them out, and you got this totally wrong. They're the ones that are in. The very next story, a rich guy comes up, a religious rich guy. Hey, Jesus, I'm doing pretty good. Got God's blessing. I've gone to Sunday school a lot. I know a few verses. I'm doing all right. Can you help me out? And Jesus said, sure. Go to G-Free and give all your money away because all they do is talk about money. All right? Go buy yourself some of those Christmas wreaths and get a spaghetti dinner and drop some money on those Chilean kids. Then you'll be all right. I don't like this church. They talk about money all the time. And he walks out. And Jesus says this, truly, I tell you, it is hard for someone who is rich to enter the kingdom of heaven. And those brilliant, almost scholar disciples go, oh, well, then who could be saved? If the rich can't make it, if the good people can't make it, who can be in? They tried to keep out who Jesus says it belongs to, and they fall into despair. And Jesus says, the first will be last, and the last will be first. Be careful. Be careful. God sees things differently. See, it's in that climactic statement by the landlord. Or are you envious because I am generous? Here's the literal translation, just going word for word. It says, or is your eye evil because I am good? They get to envious and generous because this is a saying, the evil eye is to have the envious eye. I'm looking at everybody else. I'm measuring up. I'm comparing. I'm doing all that stuff. And he says, I am good. The opposite of envious is generous. Could this parable be about how we see and value things? Could this parable be a warning of going, is your eye evil? Are you misunderstanding what's important here? Are you getting wrong what you think God matters most to God? I got this. I know what's fair. I worked. I got the right political persuasion. I got a beat on life. I got common sense. I even watched the right television shows. And the landlord is going, you see life one way, but my generosity sees life in a whole different way. I don't know. So maybe it's less about kind of who's who in this story as much as the dynamic of going, the landowner is reacting to life in a completely different way than all the workers. Maybe this parable is meant to kind of just leave us a little unsettled. It doesn't quite land on one particular issue, and it's just going, be careful. Do you see things the way God sees things? Are you so convinced of the way that you have put it together that you could miss this? You might be careful. God might have it the other way around. I don't know. Now, since you're almost scholars, just one last question here. So with this parable, is it telling us how God will treat us, that he's generous to us? He's giving us some inside information of how it's going to turn out in the end? Or is this a parable about how we are supposed to see the world? As we had been called to be people of mercy, the example here is for us to be people of generosity in lots of ways. Don't just do that monetary thing of just going, I want to orient my life on God's values. And that might cut across some of the common sense conclusions that I've come to. I don't know. Maybe. Let those who have ears, let them hear. Maybe you let this gnaw on you. Maybe you just throw it out. That's up to you. Let's pray. So, Father, thank you for your word and for even these stories that are hard and are extra challenging and maybe make our head hurt. Or if we see them right, make our heart hurt a little bit. I pray, Lord, though, that everyone here would see past any of our cleverness and really have an ear to hear your voice through this parable and what you are speaking to them, what you are drawing out, helping them to see so that we align ourselves with you and don't get stuck somewhere where we think we got this. We know what life is all about. We are standing in the right, and here you're the upside down. So Lord, bring your correction, bring your guidance. Help us to hear your voice and to follow your lead.